Hey everyone, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I'm Nathan Hawkins.
We are the Shrink Think
Podcast,
Podcast.
baby.
Enjoy the show.
Yes.
Do our best.
We will do our best to leave the innuendo alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
It's so incredibly tempting. I like it.
It is, but I think I think it will actually. I don't know if water down is the right word, but
deconstruct.
I think it will. It will definitely detract from the importance of the subject.
I see what you're saying.
Like the almost like the critical nature of it. It's kind of like if you just make light of something and you're like, dude, this isn't the time to joke around. Like this person's
right.
like, in critical condition over here, sort of thing. So I think
look at all those cords coming out of them.
right.
It was like, okay, what are you talking about, right?
Yeah, it's kind of and it's one of those things where like people may hear certain things, and I'll probably hear it here or there or whatever, but like skip over it because let that pass in people's brains and just stay on our line, because I think the point that we're making is actually quite important. It's in a sense not to be joked about.
Yes.
Maybe until the very end you can pull it out and
I don't know what you're
say it.
I don't know what you're worried about.
Oh, come on, Nathan. You don't know what I'm worried about. You're a 12-year-old boy.
I'll be fine.
We're talking about sex. Let's go. Oh, man.
Hercules. Oh, boy.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Shrink Think Podcast. We are excited today. Not too excited, but we are going to be talking about sex today. And it's not going to be one of those like explicit sorts of things. We're actually just talking about this off mic before we started recording for the podcast. If you're on YouTube, then you can head over to our channel and watch the like behind the scenes stuff. But we're going to be talking about sex as it applies to relationships. And so it's not just like the act of sex, but it's like what it does for relationships and how men and women maybe approach it, need it, and how it impacts them and their relationship with each other. Because ultimately, as we always say on the show, we want to help people to be the best versions of themselves and to have healthy relationships. So this is one of those things, I think, that whether you are a therapist and you are listening to this episode, this can be really helpful for you and the work that you do with couples, whether you know some of this stuff or maybe you don't know some of this stuff, or maybe it's just a good reminder for you to be thinking about and maybe broaching the subject with couples that you're working with. Or if you're a client and you're in therapy and maybe you're a couple and you're part of a relationship and you're listening to this, it can be helpful for you in considering what's really going on in your relationship. Maybe it's sort of a fresh perspective on some of the painful dynamics or some of the problems within your sex life that might be happening that probably neither of you want. So this could be a good reminder, or maybe let's pop open the hood and sort of look under it and see what might be going on to sort of demystify or untangle some confusion about that. So all that said, we're going to be talking about sex today in an educational sort of a way. So Nathan, this is your topic, this thing that you do
Sex is my topic.
with couples. So let's get us started.
Yeah, one thing to keep that I want the audience here to have in mind is we're not going to talk. There's a lot we're not going to talk about. Okay, this subject is very large. I mean, there's a lot of educational stuff out there. How this came up is I regularly run into situations with couples where the guy will feel like, say something like, she's just cold, she doesn't care, she doesn't want any of this. It makes me feel like I'm not wanted, I'm not important. And then the lady's saying, what are you talking about? Like, I do my best, I'm never going to be enough, that means that I'm not important to you, and I'm never going to be enough for you. And, the whole thing, then it kind of goes into her saying something like, you could have sex every day, and the guy saying, you're absolutely right, totally I can, and so therein lies this implicit compromise that neither person is satisfied with. So, because she's not going to be enough and he's never going to get enough, that type of thing. She feels objectified. It doesn't even matter who you're with. You can be with anybody because that's how you think about sex. And a lot of women do feel that way about guys, that they think that it doesn't matter, we just need to have sex. And if you look in culture, I mean, it could look like that on the outside, with the explosion of like pornography and all those kinds of things. So, which we're also not going to talk about. But I'm saying, my point is that women have a good point, that it totally does look like that. But it's actually not true in your longer term loving relationships.
Yeah, and I just want to also say too that this is kind of a gross generalization. I think when you're saying like a lot of people feel this way, there are also, I know, a lot of people who are kind of in the opposite scenario, where maybe it's the woman who has a higher sex drive or feels this way, and a man is sort of like, I'm less interested. That's just affection or sex, intimacy, whatever, is just not his top priority in the way that she wants it. So I think it's important just to note for the people that are listening, if you don't fall into this category, we recognize that. We're not trying to say all women are this way, all men are that way. We're just saying we run into this quite a bit, and we're trying to speak to that population of people.
Yeah,
here.
And the other, that population would include mainly people that are in longer term relationships, right? Because it's a little, statistically, it's less likely. It's more likely to be kind of how I'm describing it. What I mean by that is there are definitely women that this is definitely inverted for, meaning like there's ladies, you're out there listening to this going, holy crap, that's my situation, but it's the other way around. That is completely true. Acknowledge that. However, there are literally some physiological reasons why this happens over a course of time. And that's kind of where I want to start. So if you're a lady who's been in a longer term relationship with your guy, it's not gonna. You're gonna have friends that are gonna be talking about how like, oh yeah, well, he has sex all the time, and like we have this great relationship with this many times, and he's really satisfied or whatever, and that's probably gonna hack you off because you're gonna feel like, oh great, like I'm the only one that doesn't give a crap about this or whatever. I don't know how much that other friend of yours is being honest about the whole situation, by the way, but. A lot of this has to do literally with the length of time in relationship. And the reason why is because women kind of don't, you guys, your mind is constantly aware. It's a difference between men and women. Women and men, as you might be surprised, think differently. So you're aware of a bunch of things all the time. You actually cannot turn your mind off. So, which is whatever space that you're in. Guys we can completely turn our mind off.
Yeah, we have a nothing box.
We literally. What
are you thinking about? Nothing, literally nothing.
Right.
I'm just staring.
Don't be jealous.
Nothing happening.
It is a superhuman power. So as the security of the relationship happens over time, you're thinking about stuff all the time, about random stuff like how are things going, what's happening, what's going on the next whatever. You're not necessarily thinking about any kind of sexual type of thing. And then the way that attachment works over time is like you kind of have what you need, which is most women care the most about security, which you now have because you're in a longer term relationship that's monogamous, and as long as it's a trusting one, meaning like you have no reason to believe that your partner is doing anything weird with betrayal or something, you're going to be fine. So this happens about after 2 years on average, where that stuff starts to happen. And there are two situations that are pretty regular where, because the guy basically is going to be like, you don't seem to care about this anymore, I can't believe it. And so then the issue becomes like, okay, we need to up the scale of what's going on, but honestly, you still kind of don't care. Not like he does. And you could feel guilty about that. And I'm going to say, well, don't feel guilty about it. As long as you're responding and you're trying to honor the need of your partner, you're on the right track. And for the guys out there, they really struggle with this because they're like, well, not really, bro. I mean, it's kind of like cold and she seems like she just doesn't care at all, and that sucks and it's not exciting, And she's also telling me things like, you don't even need to kiss me. We don't need foreplay. Just kind of get going here, type of thing. Well, the two situations that occur where women become interested, according to research, and there's TED Talks on this, is when that maybe you're out at a restaurant and a female server comes up and starts flirting with the dude at that situation. All of a sudden, it's like the women for that second, remember, you're always thinking about things, but now your attention is totally drawn to this lady flirting, and then you're looking at your guy through the lens of this woman, and then also not wanting the woman to be hitting on your man. Like, all these things happen at once, and all of a sudden you are sexually interested in your guy in a different way. And it might be striking, like, oh, that's the first, like, that's interesting, I kind of feel this way, right? So that's one situation. The other situation, which is the most common, that I'm going to try to pitch that you men out there take seriously. This is going to be difficult to get over your current understanding of the situation, and just trust me with this. But is at the actual point of intercourse itself. Actually, at the point, not at foreplay, none of that stuff. At the point of intercourse, it's like the lady's attention, remember, is everywhere. She's thinking about everything. So a lot of what's happening for her is, when you're asking about sex or bringing it up, she's thinking through, like, can I get there? Like, I have all these things on my mind. I was going to hopefully relax and not think about any of this, and now you want me to not relax potentially, and also turn my mind off. Like, how? And I need to focus on this, because if not, then it's not going to be good. And I'm like, blah, 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 And so as soon as you bring it up, all of a sudden she's just aware all these things in her mind. But if she avails herself to you, that's intentional, man. That's intentional. What she's saying is, I am going to go there. I'm going to do it.
I'm choosing you.
Right. Yep. It's a choice. And so at that point, that choice doesn't get activated for her as something that she can feel really in a good way of what you want until intercourse. Most of the time in longer term relationships. It's not the same. Again, it's not the same in younger relationships. I'm not sure if you're thinking about anything. Okay. So I feel like I'm dominating this thing. So I'm like, and you're like, yes, you are.
This is your subject. So yeah. I don't know where you want to take it.
Yeah. So part of this is a pitch to you guys to say, okay, let me accept that this gift that's actually happening. She's giving me a gift, and I'm going to accept it. And also, she's enough. Like, because remember earlier, like, she's kind of coming at this thing where nothing that she does, because that's part of the sexual problem here, is going to be good enough. She feels like, oh man, I'm availing myself to you this many times, and like, it's constantly never enough, or it's never good enough, or I'm never good enough, and that kind of thing.
So it sounds like you're saying that there's a kind of a process that guys need to go through, and they need to go through that process and trust the process, and trust in the process that it will get them to where they want to be, even if they're not seeing it on the outset, because that's not how it works for women. So it's kind of like, okay, if she's saying yes, but she doesn't seem interested or excited like you might be, for guys, it's like, that's okay. Trust that she will get there. She is going through this process with you because she wants to get there, and she knows, maybe she knows, or she expects that she will eventually. And at that point of intercourse, she does get there, at which point you can be glad and grateful that you did go through the process, trust it to get there, because now it's like, see, look, it happened. And all the, judgment, insecurity, frustration, whatever that a guy is carrying, he sort of needs to suspend all of that judgment until he gets to that point, and then afterwards see, almost like you've got this hypothesis, but it's like feelings, right? Feelings, fears that a guy is holding on to, insecurities. Like, suspend that as a hypothesis. I wonder if that will come true, but maybe it won't, right? Go through the process, and then if she really does, change, like in the middle of it like that, he can then at the end say, did that stuff come true? And if what you're saying is right, where she did connect and engage and things feel different or whatever, he can say, no, actually, none of that was true at all. That was just my own fears and my feelings, right? Because she did make that choice, and I'm glad she did. So I need to actually accept when she says this, that this is what she actually wants, even if I'm not seeing it right away.
Right. And as you were talking there, it made me kind of remember that the other side of this coin too, for guys, is they'll say stuff like, well, she does need this. You're acting like she doesn't need anything, and she just is like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and do it. No, you are right. She does need that in relationship with you, and you have to give that to her. So if you're saying, I need this and I want to give this to you, then give this to her. She has availed herself to you, so follow through. Don't, it's like, well, you need this, but under these conditions. Like, no, like, she's availed herself, and those are the conditions. And now that's the opportunity for you to follow through.
Let it be and go for it.
Yeah, it's just the response of what's going on. I'm going to transition here to the other side. But in this process, one of the things that I came to mind when I was trying to explain this to somebody else, we were talking about permission versus blessing, which honestly we could probably do a podcast episode on. But just in brief, it's this idea of giving your partner blessing rather than trying to give them permission, right? So a person that I was working with was like, the guy was like, that's what I'm talking about. It's like she's giving me permission, and I want her blessing. But as he described it, it's like, no, she is giving her blessing. That's kind of what we just got done talking about, right? Well, I want to kind of explain, or just use this video that it was a movie where it was a stay-at-home mom. You kind of watch her she's totally overwhelmed during the day, and the guy comes home and he wants sex, and so it's not a graphic type of thing. She goes, yeah, no problem. Lays on the bed, turns over, pulls her underwear down, and then grabs a book, and she's laying face down but grabbing a book and reading, and he's behind her, and you see her just moving gently as she's turning the pages while she's reading. And I was explaining to the guy, that is permission, okay? That's not what we're talking about, and that's not what you're experiencing most likely. I mean, that's a whole different scenario. And anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but that's a whole different scenario, not what we're saying. So if we switch gears over to the other side for women, no, he does not simply just want to, I'm going to use a term here, bang you. Like that kind of idea of like, yep, we're just going to do this, and that's not about that for him.
Because remember, we're talking about long-term relationships here, and we're kind of assuming when we're talking about these longer-term relationships that you guys care about each other, like each other, enjoy each other, want to be together, don't just want to have sex. You're not just roommates, but you actually you're committed. You have and want and cultivate a relationship that is active and alive, right? So to say that he just wants to have sex is like saying, I don't know, I just want to go to the mall and get my thing and get out, as opposed to, no, I like being at the mall. I like hanging out there and like talking to people and like browsing around. It's the vibe. Like it's a very different kind of an experience. So we're kind of assuming here that this is the context of the relationship. So for a woman to say that he just wants that is actually to kind of deny all of the care and investment that he has and has made for you specifically in this relationship.
Yeah, and this is a frustrating part for men when they get that statement back from their partner about like, all you care about is this. Because they find they have a lot of trouble trying to communicate that that's not true, and everything that they get exasperated with being not believed. So I'm trying to take this opportunity to hear this differently, right? So an example that I use is this is kind of an old timer example at this point in some ways, but men in a foxhole, right, that are at war, okay? And the reason I like this is because you've got a lot of men that are there from totally different places, different states, different cities, from all over the country, and now they're lumped together in a platoon. They don't really know each other at all. And now, like, they're in a foxhole, they're fighting the enemy, however that works, and all that they do back and forth is like, hey, I'm out of this ammunition, can I have this? Right? That's all that's gone on, and they're fighting. And then somebody comes up to relieve them, they sit down, they're smoking a cigarette, or whatever, because this is old timer, and they're now best friends. Like, well, now they're connected. Did any talking happen? Nope. Think of the movie Step Brothers. Same thing. I don't know if you've seen that, but like back in the day, if you haven't seen that, that's like classic. Anyways, they get in a fight, and then they make one guy makes a statement, and he goes, "Really?" And he goes, "Yep." "Did we just become best friends?" "Yep." And like just like that type of thing. So I share that because, and Aaron's got kind of a story too about basketball. We were talking before on YouTube. I think that was that on YouTube or not?
Possibly. I don't
Possibly.
recall.
Anyway, we're just going to point people back to the. So when men have sex with you, the mere action of doing that is a shared experience for them to be being your best friend and being connected to you. That feeling. We don't need to have a 45-minute conversation about our feelings. Like, we know you do, so we'll talk about that. But the way that that makes you feel connected doesn't really make us feel connected. Not the way you're getting connected. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's important and those conversations need to happen. And we do feel connected.
Right.
But
right.
it's not the same for us as that physical interaction that happens.
Yeah. It's kind of like, just to clarify that, I guess I would say it differently. We do need to have 45-minute conversations. Right. There are plenty of times where we need to talk, and even about our feelings, and that feels great. It's like, I feel so much better, right? It would be sort of like I was hungry and I had a snack, and it's like, oh, that's better. Or I was a little bit thirsty and, I grabbed some water. It's like, it really is satisfying, However, what you're describing is that sex does something different. That's like, I don't know, you had a long work week and you have a weekend of just nothing, relaxing, and you're like, or you go on vacation, right? You're just laying by the pool or on the beach and you're like, this is like soul satisfying. It's so much bigger and deeper. It satisfies in a deeper urge or a need in us and makes us feel more connected than what that conversation does. Probably in the same way that 45-minute talking conversation does for you.
Right. And so we'll close up with this. But if you just notice there, you see the difference, right? Because on the one hand, the lady is like, I don't really need sex the same way as you, right? And then the guy's like, well, I don't really need a conversation the same way as you, right? Okay, it turns out you're different, right?
And we both need both of them.
Yeah, right. And we both do need both of them. Like, as I was saying earlier, dude, you're right, she does need it. And you're right, that he does love you and she does love you and that kind of thing, and it is enough. It's enough, but this is how it works. Hopefully that was helpful. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Sexy times. Hercules.
Probably not as exciting for that little 12-year-old that he wanted it to be.
Oh, man.